you say we're happy, let's leave it at that. Happiness is something I know nothing about.
Greetings, guest. Welcome to the Patriarchy, where we explore cinema classics fueled by predictive Hollywood programming and unpack how our favorite characters in cinema got egg all over their faces. I am your commentator, Dom, and tonight we're unpacking Rebecca. In this video, we continue with the unpacking of Alfred Hitchcock directed classics by taking a closer look at Rebecca. Rebecca made its debut in 1940 as a psychological thriller based on the 1938 graphic novel of the same name written by Daphne du Maurier. Hitchcock adopted two other works of Mrs. du Maurier, which include Jamaica Inn and The Birds. And we'll touch on that as it was said that Daphne encompassed characteristics of both Rebecca and the new Mrs. De Winter in her story. Let's examine the plot, its characters, and try to understand how some women fall for cold and unemotionally available men, and what motivates them to stay in these situations even when everyone around them says you simply aren't good enough for him. Starring Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine, this feature film follows the whirlwind romance of a young woman in the south of France who falls in love and quickly marries a mysteriously intense older man named Maxime de Winter. The film is set in Monte Carlo on the French Riviera, where Maxime de Winter meets a beautiful and shy young woman at a resort who is working as a paid companion to a pretentious, wealthy older woman, Mrs. Van Hopper. The two are obviously attracted to each other. She's attracted to a strikingly confident presence, and he to her demure innocence. And they spend their days eating lunch and taking drives around Monaco together. Aside from being a paid companion, the only other details we know about the young woman is that she has no family as her mom died when she was a child. She also recently lost her father, whom she was close to just a year ago. This seemingly minute detail actually gives the audience the greatest clue as to why she openly takes so much disrespect from Maxim and his peers. She really has no one and has quickly latched onto a man, strikingly handsome as he may be, that can take care of her. She doesn't mind that he treats her like a child.
Stop biting your nails.
As she's clearly insecure, fragile, and likely struggling to fill the void of her recently deceased father. Back to the story, the young woman finds out through Mrs. Van Hopper that Maxim is a widower who is still pining over his deceased wife, Rebecca. This thought makes her uneasy throughout the duration of the film, yet she continues on with Mr. De Winter. Let's pause here to get an accurate description of who Rebecca is. Maxim's former wife, Rebecca, was said to have died in a sailing accident and is described in the film by most as incredibly beautiful and attractive, charming, witty, and essentially a great socialite and lady of the House of Manderley. We'll see later that Maxim saw her differently. When the young woman receives word that she must promptly accompany Mrs. Van Hopper, her employer, to New York, Maxim swiftly proposes to her.
I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool.
And when they let Mrs. Van Hopper know, she basically tells the young woman that she's kind of a brood and she doesn't have what it takes to be his wife.
Mrs. De Winter.
Now, this isn't the last woman in this film who doubts her ability to be a worthy wife to Maxim. There are three women who do this. The jealous woman who couldn't quite hold his attention, the loyal servant whom shared a close bond with Rebecca, and the sister-in-law. No explanation needed there. Throughout the film, we'll notice what little self-confidence she has being chipped away as others compare her to Maxim's late and dear Rebecca. This is also a good time to note that we've yet to learn this woman's name. And it's something we'll never know apparently, as her identity is unimportant. What's important in this story is that she's Maxim's wife and that she live up to Rebecca or to the needs of Maxim. Off the bat, we see that Maxim, although fond of his new love interest, treats her like a child. He makes comments like,
Stop biting your nails.
And,
Please promise me never to wear black satin or pearls. or to be 36 years old.
And drags her around like a rag doll. Note that she takes no issue with this behavior. She just wants to appease him, and throughout the film, we'll see that this woman's biggest desire is to just belong and get along. Remember, when we met her, she was a traveling companion to a callous elderly woman with no family of her own. Being the new Mrs. De Winter is the only opportunity she sees to establish roots somewhere and to be a part of something. When they finally arrive to Manderley, Maxim's new bride is aghast and overwhelmed at the size of the estate, the staff, and particularly struck by Mrs. Danvers, the head housekeeper. Mrs. Danvers is another character in the film who makes it clear that the young woman, let's refer to her now as the new Mrs. De Winter, is not cut out for Manderley or to be Mr. De Winter's wife. And the new Mrs. De Winter concedes to Mrs. Danvers' intimidating demeanor at every instance. At one point, Mrs. Danvers even creepily walks the new Mrs. De Winter through Rebecca's nighttime routine as she's showing her how she's kept her room as is. This notably made the new Mrs. De Winter extremely uncomfortable. Beatrice, Maxim's outgoing and talkative sister, is the third woman in the storyline to critique his new wife. Beatrice also alludes that his new wife is unworthy, making off-putting remarks about her hair and clothes.
I can see by the way you dress you don't care a hoot how you look.
Frank, the overseer of Manderley, is the only one who sees Maxim's new wife for who she is, stating that she's a breath of fresh air. But when the new Mrs. De Winter insecurely asks him about Rebecca, even he still can't get over the extraordinary beauty of Maxim's deceased first wife. Maxim's new wife clearly has just as much of an obsession with Rebecca as everyone else, as her curiosity about this seemingly perfect woman eats at her soul. The new Mrs. De Winter cries a lot, but finally stands up for herself after an uncomfortable encounter with Mrs. Vanders and orders her to get rid of the late Mrs. De Winter's things. She then decides to throw a masquerade ball, and Mrs. Danvers sabotages her by suggesting she wears something that she knew would upset Maxim.
Good evening, Mr. De Winter.
Mrs. Danvers plays the role of loyal servant well and even tries to get the new Mrs. De Winter to jump out of the window to her death. Do you think that she would have conceded had it not been for the alarm of the shipwreck? Share your thoughts down below. So after the shipwreck occurs outside Manderley, Maxim is forced to admit that he actually killed his former wife accidentally after striking her in a jealous rage. It turns out that Rebecca wasn't perfect and was actually quite manipulative, and told Maxim that she was pregnant with someone else's child when she actually had cancer and knew her former husband well enough to know that he'd end her life early as she wanted for that reason. We also find out that, as told by Maxim, he never loved Rebecca, and although she was everything a perfect wife should be, she lacked the tenderness and unrequited love that is shown by his new wife. The new Mrs. De Winter is so thrilled by this fact that Maxim never loved the infamous Rebecca that she doesn't care that he murdered her and disposed of her body. She's just happy that she is his only love. Let's not let the fact that Maxim never loved Rebecca deter from the observation that he is still an emotionally unavailable man. Instead of the presumption that his mind is consumed with thoughts of an old love, we find that his thoughts are actually consumed with the love he never received from her, and the heaviness of playing a part in her demise. The story ends in a blaze when the housekeeper sets the entire estate on fire. Mrs. Danvers dies with the house, and subsequently all the memories of Rebecca turn to ashes. This one is a headbanger. What are your thoughts on the new Mrs. De Winter's obsession with obtaining Maxim's love? Do you see how their relationship mirrors the classic love-obsessed woman who is drawn in by the stoic, cold demeanor of a man? And what about all the women in the film playing into her insecurities by implying that she'll never measure up? Leave your thoughts on this one below. Also, if you enjoyed this content, like and share the videos, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Signing off now, your friend, Dom.